Attention, you're listening to The Todd Huff Show, America's home for conservative, not bitter talk and education. Be advised, the content of this program has been documented to prevent and even cure liberalism, and listening may cause you to lean to the right. And now, coming to you from the Full Suite Wealth Studios, here's your conservative but not bitter host, Todd Huff.
Conservative, not bitter indeed, my friends. It's a pleasure to be here as always. A little bit of a different setup today. You know we don't do many interviews on this program. We've broken that rule today because we have a very important race. There's a lot of important races in Indiana for the Hoosier listeners. No matter where you are, there's important races coming up this fall. But there is an important race for Congress, Indiana's 6th district. And we have someone running for that office. Her name is Sarah Janisse Brown, and she's going to be talking with us today on this program. And so we'll get to that here quickly. I want you to meet her. I want you to know what she thinks. I want you to understand, that this is the point in time, right? We get upset when Congress doesn't do what we want them to do, but this is the time where we set the table that allow those things to actually materialize when the time comes. So here's your chance, and I'm going to give you a chance to respectfully put your money where your mouth is and support her campaign, her candidacy, if you think it makes good sense, if you like what she has to say as well, my friends. This is what we have to do. This is our moment to advance constitutional conservatism. So that's where we're headed. That's where we're headed today, and we'll get to her in just a moment, my friends. Ever wish you had a whole team to help you manage your financial life? That's the beauty of family office services at Full Suite Wealth. Their experienced advisors bring together everything from high-level investment management, private equity, private credit, option strategies, down to complex legal needs, all customized to you. My friends, it's like having a family office just for you with people who know your story, your goals, and if you're serious about planning for the long haul, I think you should check them out. FullSuiteWealth.com is the website. That's FullSuiteWealth.com. Build your legacy, secure your future. With no further ado, I'd like to bring on Sarah Janisse Brown. Again, she's running for Indiana's 6th congressional district. Sarah, welcome to the program. How are you?
I am wonderful, having more fun than should be legal. And thank you so much for breaking your rules and having me on your show.
Well, we do it every so often, and it's it's important. It's these elections, we see the gridlock, we see the fight over these key issues, and a lot of people overlook the importance of these primaries. So why is it that you're running for U.S. Congress, Sarah?
Well, my 4th grandson was recently born, and I looked that baby in the eyes and thought, if we don't do something serious now, this child is not going to have the opportunity to live the American dream. I'm a mom of 3 sons, 12 daughters, and I just found out my 7th grandbaby is on the way. I've spent the last 27 years dedicated to raising kids, building a business. I've won 2 elections, hopefully a 3rd. And I've always lived a home-centered life. But now that we've launched 11 kids, my husband and I agree that it's time to head for Washington, D.C. and actually represent the people.
Okay, now you might have to repeat that because some people may have swerved off the road momentarily when they did the math. So you're a mother of how many total children?
15.
There you go.
You've probably heard Charlie Kirk said, get married young and have more children than you can afford. Well, we were doing it before it was popular. It was my dream when I was 15 years old to have as big a family as possible. Most of my friends were feminists who said, why would you ever want to bring a child into this dark world? And I said, to bring light.
Amen.
So So we had 5 in our 20s, 5 in our 30s. And then when we were doing mission work in Ukraine, we met a group of Roma Gypsy orphan kids at an orphanage that were being bullied terribly, on track for human trafficking. And we knew that nobody wanted to adopt a sibling group of 5 kids. And we thought, well, we've got 10. And God's blessed our business. And, well, what's 5 more? And so 9 years ago, we adopted 5 Ukrainian kids, ages 6 to 16, and brought them into the family, homeschooled everybody. And we just feel so blessed. But now that we're almost empty nesters, we feel like it's the perfect time to pursue a calling to get back into politics.
Well, it's an important thing that you're doing. These seats are all important. I was at the State House. I was part of the movement to try, along with Turning Point Action, to try to get these state senators to redraw the congressional maps and to change those districts. Of course, they did not. So District 6 stays the same. For our listeners, now we're in Metro Indy. We're broadcasting all over the country here, but we're in Metro Indy. That's home base. Paint the picture for people to know what District 6 is. What are some of the cities, the sides of town that you're on?
All right. So District 6 includes the south part of Indianapolis, Marion County, Greenwood, all the way to Columbus, Indiana, which is known for its cool architecture, all the way out east to Richmond and the border of Ohio, and up to Greenfield, Indiana, and Fortville, Indiana, where I used to serve on the town council. I did a lot of work fighting for family farms and agritourism in Hancock County 15 to 20 years ago before moving to the mission field.
So you had said that you have held office before. Tell folks a little bit more. You mentioned it there about some of your experience in politics.
So I never expected to get into politics, but I was raised by a dad who retired a chief master sergeant in the Air Force, and he was my homeschool tutor. I started being homeschooled when I was 14 years old because of bullying, and I begged my parents to homeschool me. They were homeschooling my sister because she was allergic to food coloring and kept getting really sick from the school lunches and by being exposed to things. And so she was homeschooled for health reasons back in the early 90s. And I started begging my parents to let me do it too. And when my dad took over leading my education, he thought that government and economics were incredibly important. And that meant I was listening to Rush Limbaugh with my dad every other day. And then whenever Congress was in session, we were watching C-SPAN. And because he was deeply involved in Desert Storm and the fall of the Berlin Wall around that time, he was always translating to me what everything meant. And so as a kid, my dream was to go into the Soviet Union, smuggle Bibles, bring the gospel, rescue street kids, adopt orphans. And then I fell in love with my husband, who's from Indiana. We actually met at 13 and 14. Fell in love by the time we were later in our teens, and then got married at 20 and 21 after I'd already done mission work in Russia, Hungary, Yugoslavia, several countries. I didn't expect to get involved in politics because we were so busy having babies. But people began to tell me that I should run for town council because I was always advocating for small businesses. I was fighting government overreach, helping family farms. I had goats in my backyard, and the town council said it was illegal and I needed to get rid of them. But the law said that only horses, chickens, and cows were illegal. So I had to take the town to court to keep my goats in the backyard, and I actually won. When that happened, people started saying, you need to run for town council because you understand what individual liberty is all about. And I'm like, no, I'm busy. I'm here raising, I have 8 kids under 11 years old. But then when we found out that there was only one guy on the ballot and he hadn't done anything much good for the community, my husband said, "You got to run for office." And I said, "No, you run for office." He's like, "You'd be so good at it. Just put your name on the ballot." And I did, but two of my friends put their name on the ballot too when they found out who was running.
Uh-oh.
And I thought I would have supported either one of them. Well, it turned out I got about double the votes of everybody, and I ended up serving on the town council and was able to do a lot of Main Street revitalization, brought the festivals back. When I got on the town council, about 75% of the shops on this Norman Rockwell type Main Street were empty. I had all kinds of innovative ideas, and by the time I left, it was a bustling little community and it was thriving. And we went to the mission field. Over that time, people kept saying to me, "You need to get involved in state government, or you need to get involved in federal government. You would be really good at it." So my husband and I and 9 of our kids had to evacuate war in Ukraine, ended up refugees, basically wandering around Europe, saving up money to buy tickets home. And we were praying about what we were going to do. And the idea of moving back to Indiana and getting back into politics was very much on our hearts. But we decided to hold off and wait until our youngest child is 10 years old, because we wanted to pour our life into our kids, into our mission, grow our business. But for the past 15 years, we've been building a life that would launch us into serving our country. We didn't know whether it would be state or federal, but we waited for the perfect opportunity, and the perfect opportunity has come.
So you're signed up to run in this primary, District 6, U.S. Congress. I want to get your thoughts on this. I talk on this program a lot. I tell people I have, and you have to be careful, right? Because God sometimes has other plans. But I used to have political ambitions of running for something, but I really don't. I feel like this is the place for me. I like doing what I do, all that sort of stuff. But it is amazing to me, Sarah, how many people get into politics, and I don't think you fall in this group, to be clear, and they sign up to go to Washington, D.C., or even to the State House or something like that, and they're naive about what they're up against. Washington, D.C. is a dark place. I don't want to overstate this, but there's a lot of evil that's happening inside the inner working of our government and so forth. And so talk to me about that, because that, to me, I know when Trump ran for office, I said there's 2 problems with the Republican Party. They're either not conservative enough, or they're whips. They get to Washington, D.C., and they either capitulate. They think, man, I'd rather be invited to the parties. I would rather, not have the media say bad things about me. These people are mean. I just can't take it. Or they're just not principled enough. So talk to me about just preparing the mindset. How do you think about what you're up against should you be fortunate enough to go to Washington, D.C.?
I believe that a lot of people in Congress have forgotten that it is their job to represent the people that elected them. And I've been asked several times, what would be the first thing you'll do when you go to Washington, D.C.? And my answer is, I'm going to put a sign on my door that says, "Welcome Hoosiers. All others, including lobbyists, must be represented by a voter in Indiana's 6th district." A big problem in Washington, D.C. is that there's so much pressure on the Congress people to do the bidding of lobbyists, big corporations, big pharma, big medical, big banking, big agriculture, big education. And it's almost like communism flipped upside down. In the 80s and 90s, growing up, we were worried about communism, where they're taking from the rich and giving to the poor and making everyone poor. And now they're taking from the poor, they're taking from the middle class, they're taking from the taxpayers. And when they can't get enough money from the taxpayers, they're just printing as much money as they need to give to big, powerful, wealthy corporations. We're subsidizing big agriculture, big banking, big pharmaceutical, big education, and we're not representing the people in our districts. One thing you have going on a lot is congressmen and women are pretending to represent their constituents by creating bills and sponsoring bills and co-authoring bills. And nothing even happens with these bills. I'm looking at it and this person says, I sponsored a bill to help people who want to adopt children to make it more affordable. Well, that bill went nowhere. And they didn't even try. They could have added a discharge petition to it, which is a whole nother conversation. But they're putting a bill in, they're putting it in the hopper knowing nothing is going to happen, that there's no power behind it. And they're doing it so they can talk about it in their campaigns while they're serving the lobbyists, and they're working for the lobbyists for campaign cash, for the parties, for the cocktail parties, for the cruises. It's not everybody, but a lot of people end up in Congress, and now they're doing insider trading. Their returns are 100 times better than the average American, including, the person I'm running against has gotten a reputation for insider trading. You would have to look into it. Anna Paulina Luna in her podcast said he's one of the top 10 stock traders in Congress. And if you look at his social media, most of the people who are commenting are saying, you don't represent me, you represent the wealth and the power, but not the people. And I represent my children, my grandchildren, your grandchildren. There is nothing a lobbyist or a big corporation or people in government who are trying to manipulate me could do to convince me to destroy the future of my grandchildren. I'm there to fight for them. And, just an example of how strongly I will hold on to what I believe. My opponent got endorsed by a pro-life organization after he ran for mayor. And people tell me all the time that he produced a pro-choice commercial saying that he doesn't mix religion and politics, and it's something that a woman and her doctor need to decide on. Oh boy. And he just got endorsed by the Susan B. Anthony Foundation for his pro-life values. Now, I'm a mother who was 12 weeks pregnant with twins, went to the emergency room for heavy bleeding, and the doctors told me, you need to take abortion medication immediately and in this pregnancy to save your life. And I said, you are going to have to find some other way to save my life. I am not going to live the rest of my life having decided to end my pregnancy. And they could not prove that the babies had passed. They just thought the pregnancy was life-threatening. The doctor refused to serve me, and we had to contact the hospitalist, and he was able to save my life with 2 blood transfusions. But it was so sad to me that a foundation who's supposed to value life would give an endorsement to a person who made a pro-choice commercial when he's running against one opponent who said no to a doctor saying that I needed to abort to save my life. And, I'm a mom who adopted 5 children whose mother chose life but couldn't raise them. And so I don't give in to pressure, even when it costs me.
I'm on the phone with Sarah Janisse Brown. She's running for Congress, U.S. Congress, Indiana's 6th district. You hit on something there, Sarah. We're getting close to the end of the first segment, but you hit on something that we talk about on this program a lot. When you talk about it's a game. It's a game for politicians. They go to Washington, D.C. Their primary objective is to get elected. Then their next objective is to get reelected. And then in order to do that, they often go back to their hometowns and talk about exactly the sort of thing you said. I sponsored this bill. I'm trying to get this accomplished in Washington. Nothing ever changes. If anything, we on the conservative side lose ground because when the left is in charge, they don't tap the brakes. They go full speed ahead. Our side is content with just putting it on cruise control and letting what happens. And I think that's a huge problem in Washington, D.C. So we can get to the core of this after the break. But if I was to say what's the top one or two most important issues, again, just name them now. We'll talk more about them after the break. What would those be?
All right. I was so pleased when President Trump put RFK Jr. and Brooke Rollins in his cabinet, because I really see how important it is to get the health of our children back on track and to reconsider the way we're farming. Subsidizing farming the way we have been is overinflating the amount of grains that we have, so much GMO, so much processed food. It's making real food unattainable and not affordable. And then with RFK in the cabinet, I really see a lot of progress happening in health freedom and in getting real food back into schools and in hospitals and on the dinner plates.
I need to pause you there, and we'll talk more about that after the break. But before I take that time out, my friends, there's a lot of confusion out there about something called kratom. You've probably heard the headlines, and most of those headlines are based on synthetic junk that isn't real kratom at all. Real kratom is safe when it's natural, when it's tested, and when it's handled with care. That's exactly what you get from Christopher's Organic Botanicals. Family-run company. They partner directly with farmers in Indonesia. Every batch is lab tested for purity. There's no chemicals, no fillers, no shortcuts. It's a trusted herbal option that's been used for generations. And it's a real alternative for people looking for something that doesn't come with the warning label that's as long as a CVS receipt. Start with their Kratom Starter Pack. Coupon code Todd Huff. Get you 10% off your first order. I've never had a laughing audience as I've done this, but that's good to see. Good to have here. But Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com. That's the website, Christopher'sOrganicBotanicals.com. Truth, tradition, transparency. Time out for me. Quick time out, my friends. Be back with Sarah Janisse Brown after the break. Sit tight. Back in a minute. Welcome back, my friends. It was kind of enjoyable for me to hear some agreement as I was mentioning one of our sponsors there from Sarah Janisse Brown, who's running for U.S. Congress in the 6th District here in the great state of Indiana. Now, listen, I know some of you are outside of the borders of Indiana. There's important races, I guarantee it, in your towns, in your cities, in your communities, from the top, we don't have the presidency this year, but we've got some Senate races, every House member's up for re-election. There's local races undoubtedly in your area as well. And the things that Sarah's talking about undoubtedly apply to races in your area as well. By the way, if you like what you're hearing Sarah say, you can give. You can give to her campaign, and you can do that directly. I'm going to give you our texting number, and it's going to send you the link. So you just click on it, and you can pick any amount. I think it takes any amount over $1. You can give a one-time gift. You can give a recurring gift. But just text the word GIVE, G-I-V-E, GIVE. Text that to 317-785-1030. The system will give you the link. Again, text the word GIVE to 317-785-1030 if you want to support Sarah Janisse Brown's campaign here for Indiana's 6th District. So, friends, let's talk about something really quickly that's important. That's your money. You've worked hard for it. but is it working hard for you and what you believe in? At 48 Financial, they specialize in biblically responsible investing. That means they screen out companies that do not align with your faith, your values, and they'll help you create a plan that fits your goals, your purpose. And the best part is they'll show you how your current investments, where you're invested today, how those investments stack up against your values. Some of those values, by the way, we're talking about on this program. So all you have to do to take that assessment is go to 48financial.com/Todd. Quick and easy assessment that you can take there. Again, 48financial.com/Todd. 48 Financial, helping you align your money with your mission. All right, I'm bringing Sarah back on. Sarah, before the break, you had told me the importance of health when it comes to our food, the health of our children. I'll let you continue talking about that. I had asked you what your top couple of priorities were. You started there. And so explain some of the issues, or I guess some of the things that you would like to see done pertaining to the health of this nation. And give me an example after we discuss that about something else that's important to you and you think that it should be done in Washington, D.C.
All right. Well, to hear all about the different topics that I'm passionate about, go to votesarahbrown.com. But let's talk about health. About 50% of children are either overweight or have a chronic health problem. And there are many who are neither overweight nor have a chronic health problem, but they are required to be on ADHD medication just to sit still in public school. It's a crisis. Our kids are suffering. They need sunshine. They need fresh air. They need to play. They need to be curious, ask questions, do research, learn to think. They need to be out on the farm and they need to explore. But kids are sitting in classrooms, eating garbage in their school lunches and not getting sunshine and exercise. I think it's a terrible thing that kids are so often required to be medicated to cooperate in school. I'm a homeschool mom. I was homeschooled myself from age 14 on, and I've never stopped homeschooling. And then I have homeschooled my kids. And one thing that's so important is creating a healthy lifestyle for the kids. That's why we do a lot of farming, gardening. We have animals. And the statistics in my family look nothing like the statistics in the rest of America. Over the past 20 years, I have not needed to use antibiotics for my children more than 3 times. And the times that we needed a doctor's prescription, it was for something like an infected bug bite. We use a lot of botanicals, a lot of herbal teas, a lot of home remedies. And we just have incredibly healthy kids. When RFK was chosen to serve in the cabinet, I was really excited because his wisdom, his views, what he fights for is what I've been fighting for since we found out my little sister was having her heart inflamed from food colorings. And so as a teenager, my mom had taught me that when you go to the store, you look at the label. If it's not plain English and you can't pronounce the words, it's not real food. And I remember how she would talk about how we need to fill our grocery cart with real food. Apples, oranges, bananas, cheese, milk, meat, fish. And so as a child, we were always cooking from scratch. And my sisters and I come from a family of 5 daughters. We were just healthy, active kids. But look around now, parents are afraid to let their kids outside. So to me, it's really important to get government interference out of our food. And you wonder, how does the government impact our food system? For one, we have been subsidizing GMO corn and soybeans so that we have so much corn and soybeans that they created a food pyramid full of processed grains to try to convince people that that's what you should be eating.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so low in nutrition that they have to put vitamins into the cereals and the breads. And I'm so grateful for the flipping of the food pyramid. I have a 22-acre farm. We raise sheep, beef. We've got vineyards, orchards, chickens, eggs, turkeys, and I host farm meals where the neighbors get together and we cook from scratch real food. So Congress and our governments are responsible for the health crisis because growing bad food is subsidized and there are incentives. And then the whole medical system, my eyes were open because I'm trained as a childbirth assistant, working in the Arnold Palmer Hospital for Women and Children starting at age 18, and also training with doulas of North America and Community North Hospital. When I was working in a hospital in Florida, I saw that doctors would choose to give a woman a C-section, even though it was unnecessary, just to get the job done quicker and make more money. And I thought, wow, they're following incentives in the hospital instead of doing what's best for the mom and the baby. And I began to realize this is happening everywhere. So I believe in the First Amendment. I believe in the Second Amendment. My dad, raised me a patriot. These things are so important. And one thing I also believe in is the pursuit of happiness, which should begin in kindergarten. But instead, kids go to kindergarten and they're in a room with fluorescent lighting, small windows, and they're forced to sit in desks all day. So education, passionate to change education. I'm the founder of the Thinking Tree Publishing Company. Look up fun schooling. I actually was the anthem singer for President Trump's last rally in North Carolina before his nomination. And I was introduced as the founder of the fun schooling movement. I've actually published about 360 books. So kids can focus on the things that they're passionate about and things they love. They can start studying their career dreams when they're 9 years old. And I've also designed a dyslexia therapy that gets kids reading in about 3 months. I have all kinds of ideas and wisdom and experience in how to create a custom education without putting a kid in front of a screen all day. Passionate for health.
Well, no,
and
I'm getting close to the break, but you're what you're talking about to me as a guy who, just as someone I think who I'm not afraid to think for myself, independent thinker. You're talking about a return to common sense, and I'm amazed sometimes as I look. You talked about the healthcare industry in this country. You talked about food and so forth, and Congress, and just this mess that we've created. And I find myself thinking there's a lot of avenues that can come from this conversation, but I just find myself scratching my head and thinking, how did they convince a nation that historically has been very independent, strong-willed people, that to totally deny their common sense, to trust, quote unquote, the experts? It reminds me of the COVID debacle and all this nonsense. How did we get here? It is a mess. And it's rhetorical right now, Sarah, because I'm up against the break, but it's amazing to me. We need more common sense in Washington, D.C. We need parents.
We do.
You're hitting the nail on the head. We need parents to understand that, yes, you are God's choice to raise your children. It doesn't mean that no one else could help educate or anything else. It's good to have community and those things. But my goodness, having some responsibility and some common sense along the way could go quite far. But I got to take a break.
Yeah,
Sarah. I got to take a break.
Congress subsidized fatherlessness.
I know. We can talk about it after the break. Sit tight. Back in just a minute. Welcome back, my friends. Time flies when you're having fun. I'm on the phone with Sarah Janisse Brown, running for U.S. Senate, the House, U.S. Indiana 6th district here, which is kind of the eastern side of Indianapolis, wraps around the south side. Friends, Red, White, and Brand. That's the promotional wing of this program. If you need things with your logo on it, go to redwhiteandbrand.com. Use discount code Todd. You'll save 10%. Signage, shirts, hats, whatever. Anything with your logo, almost anything. redwhiteandbrand.com, promo code Todd. So I'm going to bring Sarah back on the program. We were talking about this. Look, these conversations can go on forever. I told her I had this on my list, but I didn't get to it yet. So why specifically, Sarah, are you running against Jefferson Shreve? And I apologize for having to cut you off at the end of the last segment. So forgive me. I was up against a hard break.
No problem. Well, what I was going to say is the U.S. government subsidizes fatherlessness, and I think that is the number one problem in our country, is dads are not in so many of the homes, and the government tends to support that movement to for kids to be raised without dads. And I'm not going to go into the details there, but you can follow me on X. That would be Sarah of Indiana, SARAH, or Vote Sarah Brown. But why would I run against Jefferson Shreve? I've been asked this question many, many times. 2 years ago, I had 3 friends, family friends, running against Jefferson Shreve. There was an open seat and 7 people on the ballot. 3 of the people who were running against him were Bible-believing Christian conservatives who would have done an awesome job. Everyone I knew was having a hard time deciding which of the 3 to vote for. Those 3 men got 70% of the votes in the primary. But we ended up with a moderate who had an F rating at the time from the NRA, but now has an endorsement somehow, who had made pro-choice commercials and who had a lot of ideas for gun control legislation. So Jefferson Shreve got on the ballot as a Republican nominee with only 27% of the vote, while these strong Christian conservative men got 70%. I was convinced that this time around there was going to be a good man on the ballot who was going to win this seat. So I got an email from a friend 48 hours before the deadline, and he had been telling me to get on the ballot. And I got the email, and he said, you need to get on the ballot. You got 48 hours. And so I thought, I think it is time. And so I did a little search to find out what I could run for. And it was either going to be Republican delegate or U.S. Congress. And I said to myself, there's no way I'm running for U.S. Congress. I don't want to split the vote with whatever good man is going up against Jefferson Shreve. So I did the research to find out who was running, and there was no one. I had this feeling like I was at the Billy Graham crusade and I was a sinner, and it was time to get up the courage and go down to the altar. Talk to my husband. We both knew that I had a calling to get into really serious politics. He said, 100%, whatever you want to do. I went down to the State House not knowing whether I was going to put my name on the ballot for U.S. Congress or Republican delegate. But when I walked through the doors, I just knew my calling. And the funny thing is I had just published a book called Run, Win, Lead with a guy who was a campaign manager for someone who ran for Congress in District 6. In that book is a guide for teenagers who are interested in getting involved in campaigns. The model campaign of the book I just published was based on running for Congress in Indiana's 6th district. And I felt like, this is God. This is God's leading. I just published the book on this topic. I know what it's going to take. Let's go ahead and go for it. And I have met so many people who have said, thank you for giving us a choice. We had to hold our noses to vote for him against the Democrat last time.
So,
here we are.
We have 1 minute. What Tell the audience what you need and how they can support you, Sarah.
So right now, we really, really need to raise $50,000. We're trying. We have Joel Salatin, the lunatic farmer, coming out to do a rally with me. If you're in the Indianapolis area and you are into regenerative farming, come down for that rally Sunday, the 19th, at the Johnson County Fairgrounds, and look that up on my website. Follow Sarah Janisse Brown for Congress on Facebook, Sarah of Indiana on X. And if your heart is moved and you want someone like me in Congress, send me some money, please. It would help. I'd appreciate it. I'm going to save you so much money in the future by doing what I can to lower taxes and reduce the national debt.
And you can also text the word GIVE to 317-785-1030. We'll get you that link on how you can support Sarah's campaign. Again, the word GIVE, G-I-V-E, this is 317-785-1030. Sarah, thank you so much for what you're doing. Thank you for joining us. The music's telling me it's time to go, but I wish you nothing but the best. So, friends, I got to go.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure, Sarah. Got to run. Thanks for listening. SDG.